So welcome you all to MST 502, Economics of Tourism. Now, this is going to be our first meeting, and then so we'll have 15 sessions altogether to cover within this module, within this course. Then, so today is going to be the introduction to this course, where I need even your interactions because I need your contribution to see so how we can move forward, right? Now, first I will introduce our team. So who will engage with you with this course? I mean, with economics of tourism, and then even we'll move forward with more important content that we need to discuss at this stage, at the initial stage. So now, in terms of team, so myself and Professor Oji Dayaratna Banda will meet you, so you can see Professor's profile. Got PhD from National University of Singapore and even MPhil and BA from Peradeniya with research interests basically on development macroeconomics and capital flows, trade and economic growth and convergence. And then myself, I am from, so Professor Oji from Department of Economics and Statistics, Faculty of Arts. And so myself, I am from Department of Management Studies, Faculty of Management, and I got MPhil and BA from Peradeniya and even MSc from UK, which specialize in behavioral and experimental economics. And my interest on experimental economics, consumer choice, strategic behavior, and behavioral macroeconomics, where we will discuss a lot of interactions with the tourism when it's come to different courses, especially topics in this course. And with that, now it's time for you to introduce yourself. I think that's what we should do first, because I need to see so what kind of combinations we have in this class. If I'm correct, we have 11 colleagues who registered for this course, if I'm correct, for MA and MSc. So can you all let me know who you are? I mean, why you thought of doing MSc here? I mean, or MA and MSc in tourism, and what's the purpose and what you are doing now and so on. So volunteer can introduce himself first, and then we can move forward accordingly. Even you can turn on your camera just within your introduction as well. Feel free. Yes, so we are waiting till introduction. So without waiting that much of time, so we'll start it, isn't it? So who is going to be the first? So let me start accordingly then. Bhagya, can you introduce yourself first?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I'm Bhagya from Ragama. Recently, I graduated from University of Kelaniya, special degree in tourism and culture resource management. Nowadays, I'm at home. I'm not employed yet. Yeah.
Okay, so from your undergraduate background, you have this intention, so then it's clear. Thank you, Bhagya. And then Dilini, what about you?
Good morning, sir. I'm Dilini Premaratna. I'm from Kandy.
Mhm.
I have graduated from University of Kelaniya, and also I have followed HND High National Diploma in Tourism and Hospitality Management at SLIAT. Currently, I am working at Department of Tourism.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Dilini. And then Gimhan here.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I'm Gimman Herat from Peradeniya. Actually, I had done the high school diploma in engineering under the SLIAT and MBA in Spain. Currently, I'm working as a chief engineer at the Grand Canyon Hotel Kandy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gimhan. And then Jivant Utar. Jivant.
Good morning, sir. I'm Jigantha Dara. I'm from Anuradhapura.
Okay.
My first degree is archaeology special from University of Peradeniya.
Uh-huh.
I'm currently working Hotel Sinharagama in Anuradhapura.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jivant. Then we have
Thank you.
Kalangi, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm Kalangi Kromsilenda from Kandy, Kunmasale. I did my first degree in Bachelor of Business Management, Hospitality Tourism and Events Management in Uvalasta. I'm currently working at Trade, Commerce and Tourism Department.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we have Keshani Jayaratna.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. I'm Keshani Jayaratna. I'm from Kurmagala. I'm 25 years old,
Okay.
and I have studied travel and tourism management at University of Vocational Technology. And currently, I'm not working anywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you, Keshani. And then we have Maheshi Seniviratna.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Maheshi from Pilimatalavar. I completed my degree in tourism at University of Kelaniya in 2013.
Mhm.
Currently, I'm working at the Department of Trade, Commerce and Tourism.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And then we have Mudita Seniviratna. Mudita?
So it's me, Maheshi. I will rename my name, sir.
Ah, okay. Okay, Maheshi. And then we have Prasadini Pulasinghe.
Good morning, sir. I'm Prasadini from Kandy. I
Okay.
completed my degree from University of Lincoln University College, Malaysia, in hospitality management. I also did higher national diploma in tourism and hospitality management from SLIAT. Currently, I work for a NGO.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we have Taraka. Taraka Nuwanti.
Good morning. I'm Taraka from Kadavata, graduated from Rajarati University under the Language and Tourism Management subject. Presently, I am working in Ministry of Tourism.
Okay, great. Thank you, Taraka. And then we have Varunika Aryasinghe. Varunika?
Good morning, sir. I'm Monica Arya Singha. I'm from Dampala. I graduated in Tourism and Cultural Resource Management degree in University of Kelaniya. Nowadays, I'm working from a travel agency in Kandy.
Okay, great. And finally, we have Vice, if I'm correct. Vice, can you? I think Vice is not connected via microphone, if I'm correct, he or she. So if you, once you connect, you can join and introduce yourself. So you can check whether your microphone work or not. And then, so Tinisha, did you introduce yourself?
Sir, good
Yes.
morning.
Good morning.
I am Sinisha.
Uh-huh.
I am from Balangpada.
Okay.
I studied at HND in Tourism and Hospitality Management in SLIAT. I
Okay.
worked at Jetwin Kadurukete in Malawai.
Okay, great. Great. So do we have anyone who didn't introduce yourself because of joining later, maybe, so then we maintain an order. But if you missed, please introduce yourself. Okay, so it seems okay. So we all introduce ourselves, and that's great. And now from these introductions, I can see you all have kind of, I would say, initial educational background, even work experience, even interest. So everything amalgamated into together, and then you have this plan to go forward with this particular postgraduate degree program. So that's great. That's great. And even so, with your experience, with your background, I'm sure that you all can attend actively in these sessions. I'm sure about that. Great. And so we'll move forward. First, let me show you. I mean, now almost you might observe the C1 form. So Professor Oji posted it, and even let me say Professor Oji basically do this session, but because of his health conditions. So then I got this session these days, right? And now let me just show you this C1 form. So I hope you all now download this from the Google Classroom, right? And then let me go through basic content. So now we all know what's the course code and even the subject, the medium even, which is English, and right. So we have 3 credits for this course. So you have to cover 3 credits in your particular degree program while attending this course. And so myself and Professor Oji, Darren Banda will conduct this, as I mentioned, as I introduce the team. And the method of evaluation going to be 40% in course, I mean, it's going to assessments, and then 60% for end semester exam, where this 40% will announce soon while observing your approaches in first, I mean, this couple of weeks. And then thereafter, we can give you how we're going to assess you in course, right? So we'll observe you in this couple of weeks, and then we'll come up with our plan for your in-course assessments by 3rd week. And then, so this aim, so you can see simply to provide you sound theoretical knowledge in micro and macroeconomics of tourism. Now, so then basically you can see, so what we'll do, or what we'll attempt to do in here in this course, we'll try to apply key economic notions, principles, theories into tourism, and to see what kind of outcomes we can go for and even to achieve. And then we have 2 key ILS, intended learning outcomes. The first one, which is about explain how markets of tourism industry work. So then obviously we are trying to see, observe, even explain. Finally, you will explain. So how markets of tourist industry work, how this market mechanism work, and how things will happen in terms of economic perspective, right? Even the functionality. So you may observe it and you may improve your potential to explain it, right? And even your analytical skill. So then to critically analyze economic decision making in tourism under different market conditions. So even it's not only about your knowledge or the potential from your side to explain things after the end of this course, even your analytical skills, right? So even especially your critical analysis and the ability to perform a critical analysis on economic decision making in tourism while looking into different perspective, different angles. So then so then see how we'll go through this and how we'll attempt to achieve these ILOs. So you can see the course content where we got 12 topics, and then we have 3 discussions. Right? Even keep in your mind, these discussions are going to be very, very important at the end as well, right? So then the first topic, so which is going to be the introduction. And so today itself, so we'll introduce you basically, so some basic elements of economics plus tourism, right? Where especially we'll focus on some basic elements of economics, and then so we are going to apply them later on with following sessions into tourism, right? And then the second and third sessions will conduct by Professor Oji Dayaratna Banda, where them are about economic concepts and tourism. So we'll go for these economic concepts, and we'll see how tourism will be related to them and how we can apply them into tourism to different aspects. And then I will meet you with session 4 and 5 to discuss firms and strategic behavior. So how this strategic behavior will be going to be an important component, and even with relation to firms and their behavior, and then how we can go for different decisions, options, and even what kind of theories will support us for that, right? And then we have next couple of sessions which is about tourist choice and demand on destinations. Even we have 2 sessions, session 6 and 7. For that I will meet you again with these 2 topic sessions as well. And then we have another one is about preferences of tourists. So even will perform an economic analysis into preferences of tourists, and with that session even I will join you. And then we have session 9, markets in tourism. So where we'll focus some important dimensions in markets. For instance, we can see things like accommodation, airlines, tour operators, even so on packages. So we'll see how we can discuss these things in relation to economic, applications, as well as some important concepts. And then we have session 10, which is about employment, wages, and earnings in tourism. And then we have 11, which is about advertising in tourism, and even advertising strategies and so on, which again going to be very interesting topic to discuss. And then we have 12th topic, which will be conducted by Professor Oji, which is about contribution to tourism, to the macroeconomy, and so how would be the global competition and impact, and which kind of planning we should think of, and so on. And then following up, we have 3 discussions. So this is basically the content of this course, right? Now, when it's come to each session, you will get a rigorous explanation for this topic. So then you don't need to worry. Even you can go through recommended readings. So here we have 3 recommended readings. In addition to that, you can go for multiple readings. That's totally fine. So you can go to the library and you can check some important readings. And even so I almost checked in the library. So I will provide you a list of readings that are available in the library. So once you get library access, maybe already you have. So once you visit the library, so I will even provide the code. So then you can directly go to that place and find these tourism books. So which basically the code, obviously, if I'm correct, 338.47 onwards. So then you can go to that direction in the library, which is, if I'm correct, 3rd floor. And then there you can find these tourism economics related books, right? So I will provide a list, the available books there. And even if you can find these recommended readings there, that will be great. And even you can find these things as say ebooks, right? Even I will upload few. So likewise, we can come up with a package or combination of virtual as well as physical materials, books available for our references, which is very important because reading will improve ourselves a lot with our preparations, since this is a postgraduate course, so which will be a great resource. Okay, so this is going to be the basic outline of our C1 form. So do you have any question or concern? So it's time for you. So if you have any questions, concerns about C1 form or the content or references or whatever, feel free to ask.
No, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Bhavya. What about others? Right. Even we'll continue our session. Meanwhile, feel free to ask any questions, right? Feel free to interrupt. So that's really important because your interaction and your contribution, which is always welcome from our side. Great. Now, so what I thought of starting from infinity, right? So now, so we'll see how we can start from infinity towards economic analysis into tourism, right? Now, I will initiate this discussion with a simple video, right? Which is a bit kind of different video, but we'll see how this video going to be an important element for us to initiate our discussion. So let me play this video first, and then we'll back soon to discuss. So what we can grab from this video, even try to grab something from this video, and then we'll see what we all grab, and so then how that will be important for us. Okay.
I wouldn't know where to begin. Even more troubling, I wouldn't know where to end. I suppose we can start with today. There is no other day like today. There are days that may resemble today, but the next 24 hours will appear to be unique and finite. A universe vast beyond human comprehension, theoretically infinite in its scale, matter, and chance. Without bounds, any and every occurrence will repeat itself an infinite amount of times. A cosmic quilted pattern in which anything that could happen will happen. Today we will focus on our subject X, Vincent. Of course, his name does not make a difference. A tremendously arbitrary person in relation to an infinite universe. Just as arbitrary as the day itself, I suppose. His job as a photocopy technician has left him with an ambiguous desire for something more. He tried to legally change his name to Crouton, but couldn't be bothered with the paperwork and fees. For a brief moment, Vincent forgot his own face. He slipped into anonymity within this series of infinite doppelgangers. The recursive reflection had a profound effect. He was overwhelmed and arrested by the infinitude, caught in a feedback loop, a beginning indistinguishable from its end. What were the chances of X becoming Vincent? For he is only a series of random and easily replicated choices. Why not Ted, or Henry, or Stuart? Somewhere, some of these cosmic doppelgangers have already gone about their day. Any number of variables could affect his trajectory and in some cases, his fate. For instance, wearing two different socks could have greatly altered his pace. Or even a slight drop in temperature, a dull but irritating migraine, his curiosity or lack thereof. Everything and nothing alter his route in curious and particular ways. This is subject Y, another variable that will change the outcome of subject X's day. The boy mistook him for an 8. For several serendipitous blocks, he traced her footsteps. In this instance, their routes seemed momentarily to align. He did not believe he was following her. She just happened to be ahead, sometimes by only 3 steps, 5 steps, 7 steps. And other times their encounter would be impossible. Here, X hasn't even left his apartment. He waits to talk to the landlord about a mysterious blue splotch on the wall. He wrote love letters in his mind and never mailed them. He made up her life story, whether she liked pretzels, what kind of conditioner she used, are her socks matching? Is she smiling? Perhaps she is in tears. Her name, Beatrice, Jacqueline, Maggie. He ran out of questions and let her carry on. As fate would require, a glove fell from her pocket. Again, the day would fracture with possibilities. He was sparked by the opportunity and rushed to return the item. He picked up the glove, but did nothing. He was stopped by an acquaintance whom he didn't wish to speak with. He followed her to the train, but didn't know what to say. He followed her to the train, but was 4 steps too late. Of all the outcomes, none of them were right, and none of them were wrong. Sometimes a bit too passive, other times a bit too aggressive. With a well-timed, humbled look, they would engage in conversation. He said the right thing. You make my brain dance. He said the wrong thing. You look like a dog. He said a bold thing. I want to carry you He asked her to forget about the day, and she agreed. Neither of them would be missed. The boy mistook them for aliens. Most of the time, their playful banter would carry on for most of their time, and the moments of silence passed with equal enjoyment. He gently touched her elbow to signify his interest, and she reciprocated and handed him a small gift. He was told he could never lose it. There was no explanation for the blue splotch on the wall. The moment was incredibly fleeting, yet it would happen again and again. They continued to talk as if they were familiar strangers. The view from X's apartment was comparable to the view from Y's apartment. Of all the outcomes, none of them were right, and none of them were wrong. Somewhere else, they are someone else's someone else. They passed each other without recognition. He knew this would be the place he saw her last. He missed her without even knowing who she was. He wished things to repeat. He knew he could not have her here. Subject X's doubt and self-pity became superfluous within the abundance of infinity. He was not alone in being alone, and this made him comfortable. All at once, everything was lost, yet somewhere else it could be found, a utopia where he could only imagine being less fortunate. For every great imperfection the universe contained, it made up for it all with its subtle perfections. Without resistance, the day has come to a close, and as one day ends, another begins. Just as one moment disappears, it will spawn again someplace else, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't know where to end. Even more troubling, I wouldn't know where to begin.
Okay. So we'll start from there. So if you watch this without an interruption, so then you may observe a few things, right? So now first we'll start from there. So what you observe, and then we can continue our discussion. Now, what are your observations from this video? Can someone initiate the discussion? So just say your observations. That's what, so do not worry. So what kind of, we'll say, insights you could derive from this video at the end?
So as I saw, it is about subject X, and it's all about his day activities, such as there are so many incidents happen, and in the end it says there is no end. It can happen or again and again in future as well.
Okay. Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you, Kalangi. And what about others? So what is your observation? So can others even share your observations? Okay, so think it in this way, like exactly. So what Kalangi mentioned here, so which clearly we can see in the video. And now think of yourself. So what about your choices? So think of your history and where you are now, and you might have passed several destinations, right? So you might have different occasions that you got number of options, and then you have to go for a particular option having number of alternatives. So that's the basics that we can observe from this video. I would say is the basic, right? Even from there we can go towards more complex discussions, complex derivations, right? So then from the basic, we know we have choices to make, right? And even when it comes to these choices, we may have different types of conflicts. So one will be conflict within yourself, right? Because now you need to go for a choice and you have number of alternatives available, and then you have to go for a particular option, the choice, and then you will be have a mental fight within yourself. Okay, so why I should go for this and then why not what for this and so on, so on, right? And then you have another category which going to be your status, the society, and where you been and whatever the things. So that will again impact you. That will again ask you to think of your choice, right? So yourself, your own category, and even your perceived category. These both categories will affect your decisions, right? And then now, if we go through different elements that we can observe from this video, I will say I can get a lot, right? Because now, if you are an individual, if you are a decision maker, we'll say, for example, right? And then you might have your own appearance. So how you reveal yourself? Now, if I read the person with, say, for example, Kalangi, right? So how you are there as yourself. It's not just about your name, and even there's a person who got different attributes, right? So this person will reshape because of different things, depending on your expectations, depending on your choices, depending on your identity which you developed, right? Or maybe this embedded identity, and even depending on the scarcity of things, and depending on anonymity, depending on rationality, even irrationality. So there are a few, even we can think of a lot of other variables as well, a lot of other factors as well. So having them all together, we can think of a particular individual, a particular decision maker, right? And even this decision maker or the creation of a decision maker have infinity of combinations, infinity of types, varieties. So out of this infinity of varieties, infinity of combinations, so we are going for one combination that's going to be you. Even you can change your combination time to time, and finally you might maybe shape up yourself or come up with a different person across a timeline as well. So why these things are important for our discussion? Because now first what we are going to do, we are going to remind, if you all know, or we are going to discuss the key or basic elements in economics first, and then to see how them will important for tourism, right? So that's our purpose here. That's where we are trying to move forward. Now, in that case, let me let me do another thing, and then I will try to elaborate more things, more facts into our discussion, into our construction, into these initial steps of our ladder towards using economic tools into tourism analysis. Right. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to offer you a fresh drink. So you can see we have a variety of fruit juices. So obviously they're having different colors as well. Now I need your preference. So just type your preference in the comment. So you all may have different preferences. So just feel free to say what you prefer. So you can simply comment it. You can simply comment it. Just mention what is your preference. Okay, so I'm getting different choices now, different preferences. Okay, so thank you for your preferences. So now if I go through your preferences, we can see a lot of oranges, and then even some others prefer blue, even kiwi fruit juice, and even some even green color is again the kiwi, and then even someone preferred strawberry, and so on. Right now, the problem is now, for example, so let me say, now I got around 5 to 6 who prefer orange. Right. But now I just offer you only one orange here. Now what I can do? So what kind of options may I have now? Because I have only one orange juice here, but around 5 or 6 prefer to have this orange juice. Oh, can you suggest something for me? So what can I do for this situation?
You can ask for the second opinion of the others.
Okay, yeah, even I can ask for the second opinion. Okay, yes. And still now we should agree that we have around 12 here in this class, but I got only 5 classes here. So then even if I go for the second opinion, still I may have a problem, isn't it? Because so now how I am going to give this? That's the thing. So can you suggest? So what I will do now? I'm in a problem, obviously. So now even I observe there's higher demand for orange as well. So I don't know what to do.
Increase the price.
Okay, so yet we don't have a price. So then, as you said, so first we can label it from a price, and then even I can manipulate prices depending on the demand, isn't it? Yes, of course, Kalang.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. And even now at the initial stage, what I can do, I can just put it on a table and say, whoever comes first can get it, and then you all will fight, and finally this even the orange glass will be. I mean, depending on the fight, that will be even will be ending up without consumption from someone else as well. So then, yeah, the best option will be then utilizing a pricing strategy, rather just saying you, okay, whoever first come here can take it. Rather saying that, I can say, okay, so I will give you a price tag, and then you can purchase it, right? So then now here I just put some price tags, and then now we'll assume that you have only, we'll say, 100 rupees in your pocket. I'm just saying an example, right? We'll assume that you all have only 100 rupees in your pocket, but I put some price tags for these glasses of fruit juice as well, right? So then now I have a price tag, and now you all have kind of or amount of money in your pockets. And now what you will do? Now I will ask from people who preferred strawberry. So you have only 100 rupees, but now it costs 200 rupees. So what you will do now? I think we got someone who preferred strawberry. Gimhan, what you will do? Because you prefer strawberry, if I am correct. Now, Gimhan, you have only 100 rupees with you, but this price tag says 200. What you will do? Okay, so seems Gimhan's not is not available. So then, can we go for people who prefer orange juice? What you will do? So let me repeat. You have only 100 rupees. So it says 150.
Simply, I won't buy it.
Okay, you won't buy it, right? So then, if it exceeds your income, so you will refuse buying it. You will not buy it. Okay, great. What about others?
I will buy the third one. I think avocado or something.
Okay, this kiwi or avocado. So how you will get the balance 20 rupees then?
I already have 150, sir.
No, you have only 100.
Then I can buy 100.
Okay.
Then I will go for the fourth one.
Okay, so now as you said, even let me see what you say earlier as well. So you said if you got 150, so then you are not going for orange juice, rather you will go for avocado or kiwi. You can see in green color, isn't it?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
if you get only 100, so then you will go for fourth option.
Yes, sir.
Great. So what about others?
Yes.
What about others?
Definitely, I go for fourth option, sir.
Fourth option. Okay, that's great. Right. So now maybe others even have some ideas. Maybe your ideas converge with the idea which represented by Prasadini and Bhagya or even Kalangi. So this is what we can observe when even if I offer this to thousands of people, if I provide this example, thousands of people, even if I get average of your decisions, or if I list down the decisions made by majority out of this 1,000, even usually will get these ideas. Even myself, I will go for the same one of your choices. One will be you will not buy it, as Kalang said. So because for some people, you might find, okay, so if I do not have that much of money, so why I'm going to buy it? So no, I don't need. And majority will do it in the way which Prasadini and Bhagya mentioned. What's the way? So what you will do, first you will compare your existing income with the price tag of particular item. So then if you have the same price or same amount, so then even you will be thinking of another option. Though you can purchase it, so then you have to spend 100% of your income towards that. So then usually we'll think of saving some even for another purpose or as a D plan. So then we'll go for another option with the lower price. And even now, let me, so now I'm taking this an example, and this is typical for anyone, right? So this is even similar for myself. So what I will even do, so then I will go for 121. I will think of that. And even maybe I'm not sure whether it is avocado, kiwi, or what. Depending on the color, I will guess it's avocado, but obviously it's kiwi maybe, right? Anyhow, now I will go for that. For sure, I know that is orange for 150, but now I'm going for 120. Even if I got only 100 rupees, then as you both mentioned, so we'll go for the fourth choice, which is 100, because there's no any other option available. And that option, obviously, I don't know what is that. It's in blue color, but in the top we can see, I don't know, it's a lemon or orange or something, but which is not clear what is this. Right? But still you will go for that. So that's the beauty of our decision making process. That's the beauty of our behavior. So this is common for majority, I would say. This is common for majority. Even I will do the same. Now, this is why even dealing with human beings tend to be really complex as well. Right? And the way they go for their decisions have some patterns also. Though the behavior got some complexities, we can observe patterns in decision making. Right? And for everything, we have some fundamentals that design and that architect the recipe of these choices. So then what are the fundamentals? Basically, so we all force from this so-called scarcity in this moment. Because why? You got only 100 rupees maybe, and even now you can go for your desired choice. So if you prefer the strawberry, so this 200 rupees, double the price, and how you go. So then anyhow, scarcity, which will be a serious problem for everyone. Right? Even we all know resources are not available as we wish. We all will agree with that, right? Maybe any type of resource, right? Them are not available for everyone to utilize as they wish. Them are limited. So this is what basically in basic economics we learn, right? So if you all learn economic subject earlier, so then you all know these basic concepts. So the scarcity going to be one of basic concepts which will provide, we'll say, this key architect to the neoclassical economic formats or the discussions. And then because of scarcity, we have to go for trade-offs. Now you all went for trade-offs. So yeah, we have scarcity of choices and even scarcity of whatever money may be, availability may be, resources may be. And then you go for your choice as the decision maker, and that choice, that selection will have different trade-offs. Now you finally decided to go for this blue color glass, but we don't know what exactly that is. Even the taste we cannot imagine, so we have to taste it to see anyhow, but which is not clear obviously. But now we have to go for that because of some factors. And then so you sacrifice your desired choice. And this reflects us the so-called opportunity costs. So now what means opportunity cost? Can someone mention it in your own way? So what means this opportunity cost? What do you think about that?
Cost of give up opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So that will explain the cost of whatever will give up. Whatever are the alternatives that will give up when it's come to our choice. And for that, and even when it comes to determination of opportunity cost, obviously the scarcity and this trade-offs will be reasons. Right. So now we'll discuss about opportunity cost thoroughly soon, and this opportunity cost going to be one of important materials in economics. Because why? Now when it's come to other disciplines, we'll not that much serious about opportunity cost. Rather, we'll think about accounting cost in more instances. So then what would be the difference between accounting cost and opportunity cost? Can someone reflect what you learned earlier? Or can someone say what you think about that? Okay, so till you reflect, maybe if you learn economics earlier, so then till you reflect it, it's going to be the root level, the basics of economics. And then now here we have three key personas. Who are they? Can you recognize them? So who is here from your left hand corner? And who is in the middle and who is in your right hand corner? So how many of you didn't learn any economic course earlier? So if you learn economics, I'm sure that you might learn about these people. Maybe you didn't see the pictures, but I'm sure that you might learn about these three people, three key figures. So the person from your left hand corner, what's the name of that person? Even you can guess, do not worry. So you can guess even if it's the first time you are going to learn economics, obviously you may not find it clear who is this person. If you learn economics, but if it's not clear for you who is this person, so you can guess. Now, I'm sure that you all may.
Yes. Sir, I think these three people are economists related to neoclassical theories, econ theories.
Okay, thank you, Bhagat. So, did you learn economics earlier anyway?
No, sir.
Okay, so then that's great. So even you guess who are they?
So first one is Adam Smith, I think.
Yeah, yes, exactly, Adam Smith. Okay, Khalangi, thank you. So yes, so from the left hand corner we got Adam Smith. So usually we'll identify him as a philosopher, but who did a remarkable contribution towards economics. So basically, when it comes to economics, when you learn economics, you might learn at your initial steps about Adam Smith and his writings. For example, so we will discuss about wealth of nations, right? And even moral sentiments when it comes to some behavioral aspects. But basically, you all may hear about this wealth of nation, the book, if you learn anything about economics, right? And then who is in the middle?
Alfred Marshall.
Yes, of course, he's the Alfred Marshall, right? Who laid a lot of important benchmarks into we'll say neoclassical economics and even to marginal revolution, right? And then from our right hand corner, so He's Lionel Robbins. So do you heard about that person earlier? Even I'm asking from people who learn economics earlier. I'm sure if you not learned economics earlier, so you might not heard.
I think I heard, but I am not remember about everything.
Okay, great, Kalan. So then when it's called Lionel Robbins, so now, so why I just thought of showing you these three pictures, because them contribute with some important definitions for economics. The way they define economics support us to understand what means economics, and even to see how economics will apply things and how we can go with different applications of economics for other disciplines as well. So then, so from Adam Smith's view and from Marshallian view, they define economics through different perspectives, right? And so I will encourage you to read about their definitions, because I'm not going to focus their definitions here. And then later on, this Lionel Robbins definition provide us some important insights to think about basics or the key architecture of economics. Now, so this is the way he introduced or defined economics, and we call it Lionel Robbins scarcity definition, from his material and essay on the nature and significance of economic sciences, published in 1932. Right. So if I quote one statement from his write-ups, he mentioned that economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and square means which have already uses. Right. So from the first instance, you may not get what he's saying, obviously. Right. Anyhow, now after marginal revolution, we'll tend to say economic as a science. As so since we following up this scientific method, and then we are tend to say, okay, economics is a science, and then so what it study? Okay, so obviously it study human behavior, and then how we study it. So then according to Lionel Robbins, as a relationship between ends and square means which have alternative uses. So what he is saying, that the matter we discussed earlier with our examples, even from that video, even from that example with 5 glasses of juices, this is what we discuss. So this is what we experience. What is that? We have scarcity when it's come to availability of resources, right? However, when it's come to people, decision makers, will say, or we say agents, or any term will reflect the same. So when it's come to this decision maker, they may have different willingnesses, desires, right? And even now, if I elaborate more, right, even you may heard of this needs, wants, matter, right? Usually we'll say human wants are unlimited, so no end of wants. So you may have infinity of wants, right? So then now the thing is whether it's possible to serve all wants of human beings. No, which is not possible, because why? We know things are resources or whatever are limited, right? So since things are limited, since this scarcity is there, so we cannot entertain all wants, though they are unlimited. Right? Now what we have to do, we have to manage this somehow. Right? Now what we have to do then, so we should utilize this available resources to satisfy anyhow wants of decision makers, humans, right? And then to manage it, to control it, we could use different processes, techniques, right? Now, even now notice that if the resources are unlimited, if the resources are not limited, then obviously there will be no any economic problem, right? Then there will be no any economic problem. So we are having economic problems because why? Because things are limited. Things are limited, but with unlimited wants of people, so they are demanding things. They are asking for things, but though they are asking for things, we have limited resources available. So for 12 here, I got only 5 glasses of juices, and even out of 12, around 6, 7 asked for orange juice, but I have only 1. So now anyhow, I need to manage this. So I need to manage this, and I need to provide this for maybe 1 among 7 in a more reliable process. So then for that, I will use price as a strategy, or we may have different other strategies as well. So that is why now we have economics in application, because we have economic problems. So now we got this problem. So how to distribute limited resources across majority who are looking forward for that limited resources, right? And then finally, even following up with Lionel Robbins' definition and the benchmarks we discussed. So what we'll do with economics? So it's about studying this effort of satisfying human wants through the scarce or limited resources which have alternative uses. Right now, even these resources have alternative uses. So we can use them for different purposes, and that's why people are demanding these things. Right? And then we'll see how we can deal with this thing, and how finally we'll go for a proper, fair or whatever best type of allocation. So this is, we'll say this will be a way that we can reduce the essence of economics or economic analysis. So we'll start from there, and then once we start from there, we can go for long distances in different approaches. Right. Now, when it's come to different approaches, now even in economics, we call this the deviation between micro and macroeconomics. Right. Even in our aim, we mentioned that we need to encourage, or we need to provide you with a kind of collection of sessions that will support you to improve your knowledge in applying key micro and macro concepts into tourism. Right. So then why we should divide economics into micro and macro? What's the reason? So this is again going to be one of fundamentals in economics, but someone can mention what you learned early, and then we can move forward. So why we have this difference between micro and macroeconomics? Can someone mention it? Why we have two things called micro and macroeconomics? Even now C1 form, we call that, okay, so we need to apply these micro and macroeconomic concepts into tourism. What is this difference? So feel free to say what you learn or what you know about it.
So in microeconomics, we studied about the individuals, and in macroeconomics, we learn about the whole economy, not the individuals, but the collection of the individual.
Exactly. Thank you, Kalangi. Now even let me say it with an example again. Right now, so because assuming that we have colleagues who didn't, I mean, follow up any economic course. That's why I'm saying this. If I'm correct, am I correct? I think if I'm correct, even Bhagya mentioned that she didn't follow any economic course earlier. So likewise, we may have number of colleagues who didn't follow up any economic course, right? So with that assumption,
except from me, there are no one else studied economic before.
Only you study, okay. So then, so it's really good I came up with this with the introduction, isn't it? Because then it's good we can start from these basics. Now then, let me ask from others. Do you get what I mentioned with Lionel Robbins' definition, and even the scarcity matter, and then utilizing resources? And then what economics do when it's come to scarcity and then unlimited wants. So what about others? Do you get that point, or do you need more explanations, examples? Please feel free, right? So please let me know, because so we have to move ahead from these fundamentals towards some applications. So then feel free always to interrupt me and say if anything is not clear. Okay.
It's clear, sir, up to now.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then this micro and macro method. So let me provide you an example. So what Kalangi mentioned exactly, that is what. So I will say it in this way. So assume that you got an opportunities to study or to observe the behavior of a bumblebee. I think you all know about the bumblebee, right? So or we call a honeybee or bumblebee. Right? So you got an opportunity to study a bumblebee. So I forgot to provide a picture. So then I will say it in words. So then if you get an opportunity to study a bumblebee, so how you will study? So then you will get a, let's say, a microscope lens and or whatever, and you will observe it closely because it's a small insect, and then you will observe it closely and see so what could be its biological structure and its behavior. So what's its scientific name, and whether it is a so what's its basic functionality, and what they are eating and how they are flying. So you will study their life cycle and all, right? So then if you're given a bumblebee, for example, to study, so you will do a close study of that particular bumblebee. And now imagine you are given another opportunity to study a bee's nest. So earlier you got an opportunity to study a bumblebee, and now you got a opportunity to study a bee's nest. So what means a bee's nest? We know no. So usually, so we have bees nests, right, where they gathered and collect honey. So which is going to be their construction in general. And when it's come to bee's nest, so now how will study a bee's nest? Now when it's come to bee's nest, now you will not study individual bumblebees, rather you will study them all together. Because now we have thousands of bumblebees together who are constructing their nest. So them all collecting honey and them all putting them into this particular structure, and even they may have a leader, a queen in their nest. And then why they are collecting and why they are having this kind of design, and how they will control the whole process. So now you will study how bees all together develop their nest and govern their nest and deal with their nest. This is what exactly we do with micro and macroeconomics. Right? So now you can link this example with what Kalangi mentioned. So when it comes to microeconomics, we'll study focus elements, which means we'll study individuals of firms and their behavior. We'll study individuals of firms and their behavior, right? Like a bee, studying a bumblebee. Okay. So then we'll study how this individual will go with their decision-making process, how this individual will go for these choices. So for example, you can say subject X, likewise in that video, and then we can see how subject X will go for different choices once they got different alternatives. So this is what we call micro cross studies, which we include in microeconomics. So even not only one individual, even we can think of a particular firm as well, also a single unit. So we can study a firm, how this firm as a unit will work. And again, we are going for a close study of this firm and how it will work. This is what we call microeconomics. And now when it's come to macroeconomics, it's like that bee's nest. So we study a whole aggregate sense of people, everything together, all together. So what about Sri Lankan economy? So then when it's come to Sri Lankan economy, we have all Sri Lankans there. It's not about you separately. It's about Sri Lankans together. So we are doing a aggregate study here, aggregate analysis here. and then we have different important factors like prices, interest, and so on. Then will express us how the Sri Lankan economy will move forward and that will develop and things will happen. Right? So you see now it's like studying a bee's nest. You're studying things aggregate. So this is the difference between micro and macro. Right? So now what we'll do when it's come to our course here even, so we'll try to apply both insights into tourism. That's what we'll try to do later in different sessions. We'll apply micro aspects, even macro aspects to see different policies and different options and so on, different outcomes in tourism. Hope that's okay. So if it is clear, then fine. If it is not clear, please let me know. And even we have another dimension that we can deviate economics. That's what we call positive and normative economics. Kalangi, did you hear about this deviation, positive and normative separation in economics?
No, sir.
Okay. So anyhow, when it's called positive and normative, so which is not embedded in economics, rather in any subject we can think about this positive and normative diversion. So if you have anyone who learned about this positive and normative diversion earlier, can you mention about it? Do you have anyone who learned this positive versus normative diversion in a particular discipline? Okay, so then I will say it in this way. So if you have anyone with the idea, you can say, right? Please interrupt and say. Now, positive way of analyzing things or positive economics means we'll study something as it is. So that's the simplest, or I mean, that's the basic way that we can say what means positive. We'll study something as it is. I mean, for example, we'll study the present situation of something with evidences, with facts. Now, for example, I will say it's raining now. So I can prove it because I can have photographs of rain and I can say, yes, it's raining now. That is happening, which is actually happening, and even I have evidences to prove it. So if we use this approach for economics, that is what we call positive economics. We'll study something as it is and which is happening at the moment as well, most probably. Even maybe which was happened earlier, but still we will study it with more facts, details, and we can prove it with a lot of facts, evidences. Then there's going to be a positive analysis in economics, and then a normative. And this positive analysis is more objective as well, which is more objective. That's why we are having a lot of evidences and so on even to support this analysis. And then when it comes to normative analysis in economics, which is more subjective, which is more perceived, which is more suggestive. For example, we can say, so I would expect a heavy rain next, we'll say Monday. So think of that statement. So I will expect. So I am predicting something. I am suggesting something. Yeah, I will have less evidences maybe sometimes. But I will propose that depending on certain evidences, maybe that will be a kind of inductive jump towards a particular situation which I am predicting. Right? Inductive jump means we are going towards some facts we observed and we are predicting something beyond the facts we observed. So then we can say now, if, for example, if you control, for example, we'll say something in economics, if you control inflation within this couple of months, so then finally you will be come up with healthy, say reservations in future when it comes to foreign exchanges out here. So then we are suggesting something, but so there's a possibility to happen it or not to happen it. It's more perceived, which is more subjective. So then this is, even we can use this approach in economics. Right? So then there's a difference between positive and normative approaches. Even we can use these approaches in economics. Right? In here now, when it's for this course, we'll focus more towards this micro and macro diversion and we'll apply them. Within that, we can see this positive and normative utilizations as well. Right? And then even there's another important question. So when it comes to economics, this will be again another important question. Why economists disagree? What do you think about this? Why economists disagree? Think of that. What do you think about this? So Kalangi, what do you think about this question since you learned something earlier about economics? Do you think economists disagree?
Sometimes because they think beyond the frame.
Okay, thank you, Kalangi. Okay, so if you think they think beyond the frame, so then there will be disagreements. Okay. Okay, right. So I will go for this example first. Now I need again your preferences. So let me know which table suits best for your room. So we have two tables, A and B. And just you can comment, mention. So which table suits for your room? So you can think of your room, its orientation and so on, and finally say what would suit your room. Okay, so I'm getting choices. So majority is so far saying B, matching with the rooms. So if I could ask from someone who preferred B, and even we have some A's as well. So why your selection? What's the reason? So we'll ask someone who preferred B. For example, we'll ask from Taraka. So why you prefer B?
That shape is good for my room.
Okay, so the way it appears seems okay with the orientation of your room.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So then Madhushani, why you thought of A?
So I think B is larger than A. Then I thought that I like to get a smaller one.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madhushani. Yes, of course. Now, now if I mention it in this way. Now even this was an experiment, right? Which called Shepherd tables, was published in 1990. Now it was done by psychologists. So now, so what they're finding is both tables are the same. Both tables are the same, though they appears like two different sizes. It's like just I am turning the same table to other side than the other side. Now from this picture you may get it. You may have some this because of the pictures and so on. So the digital appearance will give us some different aspect, but You can do the same later if you got some time. Just arrange the same table, two sides, and get photographs and see. So if you show them to some a different person, they may think them are two different tables. So why? Because of the way we offer it, or way we show it. Right? So then now, if we go across this shepherd tables perception, so then I am indifferent between either A or B for my room, because why? Both are same. But of course, we'll not see it from our eyesight. Even we'll think from the fundamental, them are different. So then now the matter here is, this is what we can see with economists as well. Because why? Even not for economists, even for other social scientists, we can see the same. But when it's called economics, they are doing this more seriously, because they have to observe more, study more of human behavior and the activities in more dimensions, I would say. So then this is happening. What is that? So we are studying human behavior, we are studying humans, we are studying decision makers, and then we can study them through different lenses, different ways, different directions, different perceptions. So because of that, we may have different ideas, different interpretations. However, through any approach, what we'll try our best to explain what they are doing and how finally we can support to manage these scarce resources, or to manage them optimally to serve these unlimited bonds of people and having more. So how we can manage this process, as we discussed earlier. That's the basic intention. With that, we may have more other important, more broad objectives as well, right? Somehow, since we study human behavior, we can study them from different angles, because it's really complex. And because of that, we may have a lot of disagreements. Right? We may have a lot of disagreements. And having that disagreement will be great, because why? So that's really a good thing for economics, because that will create knowledge. That will always let us to go for discourse, having different ideas. And then finally, this discourse will generate more kind of new knowledge, and that will support for the benefit of people when it's on decision making process. Right? Then what we'll do in this course, even in some lessons, we can observe some different angles of living into economic application in tourism, and even we'll see, so out of these things, how we can go for optimal suggestions, outcomes. Right? So for example, we think of strategic perspective. So then when it's called strategic perspective, we may have different angles of looking into strategy in tourism. And then we'll see how these different angles are there, and then how we can go for best optimal having these different angles. Sometimes maybe these different angles will suit with different situations. So then how we'll identify the situation, and how we'll fit up or apply this angle into that situation and in economics, and then how we'll utilize those things, materials, with strategic perspective towards the betterment of tourism. So the firms involved in tourism industry, and even when it's come to consumers, tourists, how this will be good and supportive. Likewise. Okay. Now, anyhow, within this discussion, we discuss about the scarcity. And then scarcity, when it's come to scarcity, it's not about only money. And even here, it's about time as well. Right? And even it's not only about money and time, even it's about more other resources as well, because I mentioned you. So resources are scarce. And so then together with resources, so we can especially find this money and time, even they must scarce. Now, scarcity of time will be also very important when it's come to analysis in tourism. So scarcity in money and scarcity resources, together with concerns into scarcity of time as well. So we'll see why these all aspects tend to be important for economics of tourism, or to study tourism from economic lenses. Right. Now, I have mentioned about opportunity cost earlier, right? So then, because of different terms of scarcities, maybe it is about this general about scarcity of resources, and even you can specify maybe it's about scarcity of money or time, whatever. Them all finally reflect us about opportunity cost. Even earlier I show you a flow, right? The scarcity, then we go for trade-offs, and finally we can think of opportunity cost out of there. So then here you can see a simple definition for opportunity cost. So what is it? The opportunity cost means cost of a choice, right? So then we can say it in this way. The opportunity cost of a choice is the best among the available alternatives to that choice. Now even you can again think back to that video towards everything we discussed, right? So when it's come to a selection, a choice, even you can think of yourself. So that's not the given choice or the only choice you had, right? So when it's come to choices, you will get lot of choices, and out of that you find one. Even when it comes to A levels, O levels, even you might get different choices, no subjects and all. Even when it's come to your life, your family, your consumption, whatever, you have a lot of choices, and out of that choices you are selecting one. And then what means opportunity cost? What's the foregone best next choice? Now if you select one, then you will get list of another choices, no? And among list of foregone choices, so foregone means the choices we left, and we select one, right? So then out of foregone choices, out of the choices you left, what's the best, right? So that is what we call opportunity cost. The best among the available alternative to your choice. Now, to explain further, let me explain you what means these two types of costs, right? Because when it's come to opportunity cost, it's really important to know the difference between implicit and explicit costs. Okay, do we have anyone who know about this difference between explicit and implicit costs? So what means explicit cost? What means implicit cost? So you can mention according to your observations or knowledge or whatever you heard earlier about explicit, implicit terms. So then what means explicit cost? What do you think about this? I will say explicit cost means the cost we actually pay for a choice. Now, if you think of purchasing something, right? For instance, so you need to purchase, we'll say, for example, yeah, we'll say a mobile phone, right? So then once you purchase it, so you'll pay something to the shop. So we'll say 10,000 rupees. So then you will pay 10,000 rupees, right? So that is what you actually pay for your choice. So that is your retail cost, and that is what we call explicit cost. What you actually pay for your choice. Then what means implicit cost? So when it's called implicit cost, so here we have this value which we sacrifice and which is not a direct payment, right? And so what you can see in red color here, the value of something sacrificed when no direct payment is made. Right? So now here, this implicit cost will not express as a actually paid cost, which is a hidden cost, we'll say another way. Right? And this cost will be a sacrifice. Now, for example, so now you are buying a mobile phone. So you paid 10,000 rupees. But because of that, you missed out something else as well. Right? So you may have different alternatives that you missed out because of buying a mobile phone. So out of that options, you may have different implicit costs, which is not embedded in that 10,000, but you have some other hidden costs. For example, so now with a mobile phone, we can think with the recent experiences of our people. So you once you purchase your mobile phone, so then you might spend a lot of time in social media and whatever, and that time will waste. We'll say then that will finally will be a disadvantage for you to when it's come to time utilization. Time value of money will be a problem then for you, right? So then these kind of things are there. So this cost which is not expressed as an actual cost, but which is a cost which embed with your choice. So you sacrifice that. So you didn't utilize your time for something else, maybe for money earning activity or something which more productive. And then because of that, you might losing a cost, or you might losing some value, right? And that is what we call yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So the implicit cost, like when we go to the shop to buy a phone, so for the transport fee, likewise.
Transport fee, because even you can edit, no. So which is visible, right?
Except for 10,000 rupees, we have to go by public transport.
Specifically mentioned that, but even so, while you traveling toward the shop, what if you eat something and all, them still explicit cost. Them still explicit cost.
So that is implicit.
No, them are also explicit, right? Because you can count them, you can add them together.
Yeah.
And so then that finally, if you calculate your total cost once you're back home, so then yeah, so a good question, because I didn't mention especially, so then now, so you pay 10,000, and then once you back home, so you might spend another, say, 100 rupees for your bus, and then another 500 rupees for your food or whatever. So then this additional 1,000 rupees will say, so them also explicit, because them all you can see, them are visible and you clearly spend. And then 10,000, 11,000 rupees going to be your total cost. And them all are explicit, still explicit. Now when it's called implicit, which is rather a value of your sacrifice. I mean, now once you purchase something, then you may have missed number of other opportunities that you can purchase. For instance, now if you purchase the mobile phone, so you might purchase something else even from the same cost. Now we'll say, for example, the mobile phone, you could have purchased something else for the same item. So we'll say, so if the person is a book lover, so then that person will purchase 10 books, for instance. I'm saying. So then, but now because of this mobile phone, you missed that. That is what we call explicit, right? You sacrifice.
And it's not visible.
It's
not visible.
Exactly, it is not visible. Hidden, which is what you sacrifice, which is what we call the trade-off. That's the trade-off you made, no? So if you not buy this mobile phone, you could have buy these 10 books, but now you cannot buy because you bought the mobile phone. This is the difference, right?
Yeah, I got it, sir. Thank you.
Great. So then now this is what explain the opportunity cost. So then when it's come to opportunity cost, that's about implicit cost, right? So when it's come to opportunity cost, that's about implicit cost. So now this is very important when it's called tourism sector, because we have to think this seriously, right? This implicit cost. So usually we'll not consider, but this is also something which we need to consider. Even when it's called tourism sector, this because of this implicit cost, a lot of things happening. So we'll see. Anyhow, so this is what first we should clear, and then now I'm asking you a question. So depending on our discussion, I just need one answer from you all. I mean, your own answer. Now, if I ask you, does this your master or MSc, because you can go for MSc even, no, the right choice? Now, why you did select this? Now, even from our introductions, I can see a lot of majority of you got the background for this tourism and travel industry. Of course, then you all may have this direct combination. So you can use it, utilize it for your profession, for your higher education, and so on, so on. Of course, so for your futuristic vision or mission and everything. Then if I ask you this question, so then you may have answer no. Likewise, so you all will say, okay, so I thought of doing this because of this, and now the question is right choice. So now how you could answer this? Now for this again, you usually when it comes to your answers, in general, what we'll say, yeah, this will be my right choice because this is my career objective and this is what I'm doing. This is my job, and for my promotions, even I need this kind of master, and even for my objectives, I need to be a person who involved in this industry. So then this is exactly what I need, and so on, so on. So we'll say these things, right? And so now, since we know about opportunity cost, now we can say more things about this, isn't it? Now, usually with our actual cost or whatever, depending on that, we'll say a few things. But now, if we apply opportunity cost, the concept of opportunity cost, so we can say more about this choice. Because why? Yes, of course, I select this, and then even you can analyze whether this the right choice later on. If you didn't study well, if you didn't utilize your notional hours, if you're not attending lectures, and finally if you get less grades, so then the problem is to what extent you sacrifice to attend lectures and to do this program, and then did you add exactly a proper value for whatever your sacrifices, right? So even for undergraduate, even for any degree, so we have a lot of sacrifices, isn't it? Now, even when it comes to your actual cost, so you might pay something, no, plus that. So maybe majority of you have your families, kids and all. So then you have to sacrifice that time you're going to utilize with them, even these weekdays, weekends, of course. This is the time that you can travel somewhere, even though you can enjoy with your leisure time or whatever. But now you have to sacrifice them all, and you have to attend these lectures because you have chosen to do a master or MSc from or for your postgraduate studies, right? And then you have number of such foregone costs, right? You have number of foregone alternatives, options, and they all have a cost. Now you can calculate that cost as well. So then the cost of doing this degree, not only the actually paid cost for the degree, rather it's like iceberg. You can think of that. Now what we can visible or what we can see, which is less than which is not visible. Even when it comes to an iceberg, we know 2/3 of the iceberg which is not visible. Likewise, here even when it comes to our decisions, majority of costs are not visible. But we can do a careful analysis if once we got to know about opportunity costs. And then you have to see what kind of weight which will come into your mind, your head, and then why you need to perform really well for these courses. really well for this degree program. Because why? You have a remarkable foregone cost if you calculate, which is not only the cost of the money you paid for the degree, even there's a huge cost if you value it, maybe 4 times, 5 times bigger than the value you are paying for the degree when it's come to your foregone options, choices. Them are our opportunity costs. And then even out of the foregone choices, the best alternative is next, what we call opportunity cost. Right? And then we'll usually add that as well when it's come to our total cost considerations in economics. Right? Which means your perceived cost going to be higher than the basic visible cost, the cost you paid for the degree program and cost you pay for your traveling and all. So not only that, you have more other hidden costs. Right? That is why Milton Friedman said this way. So maybe you heard of Milton Friedman or not. So Milton Friedman, again, economist. So we usually call him the father of monetary economists, who received Nobel in 1976. Right. So this one simple statement made by himself. What is that? There is no such thing as a free lunch. So what he's saying? Can someone now elaborate it with what we discussed so far? There is no such thing as a free lunch. Can you try to elaborate it a bit?
I think everything we used has a cost its own.
Okay. Right. So then when it's kind of free lunch, how you will interpret it? So how you will show a cost? Okay, so we'll see in this now. Yeah, you are in the correct track. What you mentioned is exactly right. So now what is here? Now think of a free lunch. Now so you are getting a free lunch, but yet we can say in a way, now if you think of yourself, but what about this time which I am eating this and so on? So I would have used this for another purpose or whatever. And even the next thing we should think of here is, so free means not free. Because why? Think of others who involved in producing this. So others have to sacrifice a lot in producing this lunch. Right? Someone else pay for this. Someone else put their effort on cooking it and packing it and whatever. For then it's not only about even myself or yourself. Even it's about community. So in altogether, there's a significant cost for community for a lunch packet, for example. And then though we say it's free, but which is not free, obviously. This free means a label which we measure from actual cost we pay for something. But we have a massive hidden cost. So then though we say a free lunch, which is exactly not free. Right? So this is what we considered under the consideration of opportunity cost in discount economics. Right. So is it clear, or do you have any concerns, or do you need more clarifications, examples?
Sir,
Yes.
could you please explain explicit cost and implicit cost regarding to the tourism?
Oh yeah, sure. So we'll get one example, right? Now we'll think it in this way. Now even we are heading towards that part soon, but now I will provide one example here. Now we'll think of demand perspective, tourism demand first, right? So we'll think of a tourist, so-called. So how a tourist or this person will decide to travel Sri Lanka, for example, right? Now here, first we can think from the beginning. Now, the person could have time first to utilize, right? So we'll go, yeah. So obviously I'm coming for that by the next slide. So then I will show this and then we'll move forward, right? So what means time to utilize? Because now how this tourism will embark or will happen? So even here in common will combine both travel and tourism. So here we should have leisure, right? So what means leisure? Now, for instance, you will work, right? So we'll just think of the typical lifestyle of a person, right? We will work, and then even we may have leisure time now. So we'll say, for instance, weekends going to be our leisure time, and then we'll work all daytime, right? And then now since we get a leisure time, so then we'll try to recreation. Oh, this is what we call recreation time, right? Even sometimes in different places we call, or we label places from this label, no, recreation area and so on, right? So then we have this recreation time, and this recreation time can be utilized for two purposes. I mean, or even we can classify it for two purposes. One will be home based recreation, and even the same thing could happen away from home as well, right? Now then the other way, work based time utilization also there, right? And then when it's called recreation away from home, that will connect towards the tourism, right? The time you will, and your leisure time that you will utilize away from home, right? Now think of these options available, and even if you compare recreation or your leisure time, where you can utilize this leisure time in your home, at your home or outside your home, right? So if you utilize this time at your home, what kind of activities you will do, for example? So you will do your gardening, or you will read books, you will play with your children, you will maybe develop or modify your home decor, whatever, right? So you can use time. You may watch TV, you may play games, computer games. So we have different options. So you can utilize your leisure time at your home, or even you can utilize your leisure time, this recreation, away from home. Now the tourists, what this tourist decide then to utilize this recreation, or we'll call this leisure time, away from home. Even we have more options. So how we can utilize recreation away from home? Which kind of options we have? So you can visit your neighbor's house, or you can visit your friend's house and you can have a chat, right? Or you can go for different other options also. You can go across the street, or you can go for charity work or whatever. Even you can travel somewhere else. Now, if you are a tourist, or if you usually love to travel somewhere else, so for example, if you like to travel another region or another country, okay, so that is how you are going to utilize your recreation. Okay, so then now for this you should pay something, no? So you have to book a ticket. So if you travel to another country, so then you have to book a travel plan. There are hotels and all, a ticket, and then you have to plan your whatever the whole cost for your uh, travel plan. Right. So we'll say, for example, just for example, this is 100,000 rupees. We'll say, and then what about the hidden costs, which moved forward with your decision? This 100,000 tend to be your actual cost, which is the explicit cost. However, now once you think back of your alternatives, all foregone choices, right? So maybe the same time or the same time you will utilize for your gardening at home. And then even this hard time, this gardening at home will provide you some fresh vegetables, and that will add huge value. But except that, what you did, you went out to somewhere else to enjoy your recreation time, leisure time. Now see, there what we see, we have implicit cost together with the explicit cost. Okay, so the explicit cost going to be the actual paid cost, but then we have some other foregone costs, the cost for our different sacrifices, right? And then that is what we call implicit cost. Is it okay? So likewise, even we can think of tourism supply side as well. And even we can think of more other different matters in tourism from different angles and how this cost is involved. This is just one example.
It's clear, sir.
Okay, thanks. Right. Now then even now you see here even now this structure obviously try to show you how tourism sector will relate with things we discussed earlier. Right now, as we discussed towards this recreation away from home. Okay, so then we'll engage with travel and tourism. Even work itself engage with travel and tourism also, because now we have tendency. So for people who work, their duty to travel, and their duty of course a tourist sometimes. Right? So professional photographer maybe. So then you have to travel. You have to be a tourist to observe new species of birds or whatever. So then even this work will join with travel and tourism, right? And them all have connection with unlimited bonds, as we discussed. Them all have connection with unlimited bonds, right? And then them all finally directed towards this economics of tourism, leisure and tourism, right? Because why? Then we have to deal with unlimited bonds, and we have different plans, we have different options, and then finally how we satisfy them, and then how we'll properly manage this altogether. Yeah, we have to deal with economics as the resources are scarce. So below you can see the scarce resources also there, and we have unlimited bonds, and then finally obviously this management process, yeah, which reflects through this economics of leisure and tourism, right? And then even now it's really important for us to define some key elements we can see in this flow diagram, because in different we'll say topics, we'll discuss this using different lenses, using different applications from economics. Right. Now then few key working definitions. Number one, leisure. Now we almost discussed what means leisure from our simple terms. So then leisure means discretionary time, we can say, right? The time that will remaining after working or some other commitments. So that you can see below, right? So what means discretionary time, which is the time remaining after working, commuting, sleeping, and doing necessary household and personal chores. And then so the time which we call discretionary time, you can use it in your own way, right? So then we'll define leisure that way. So this is how we can define leisure, or even we call it discretionary time. Okay, and then we have recreation, right? So then now what is happening here? Recreation of discretionary time. So recreation of leisure, or we call simply utilization of leisure time. Right? So then what means recreation? Recreation means the things we, or the pursuits or activities undertaken in leisure time. The things we'll do in this leisure time. Right? So then So this recreation can include different things as I even mentioned earlier. So maybe home-based activities such as reading, watching television, and also things will be outside home like sports, theater, cinema, or this tourism, traveling here and there, right? So see, so now earlier with leisure means decreation. Decreation means the time which we observed and after our key daily activities or whatever, our job and all, and then that time we need to utilize. So that is what we call recreation. And then we call recreation, which means that we are doing something else, as we mentioned here, right? And then tourism, right? So then we can, so tourism means a way we can recreate this discreted time, or we can recreate this leisure time, right? And then what means tourism simply, so we can simply define tourism this way. So you may get different definitions for tourism, even maybe from other courses as well, right? So this will be a simple interpretation for tourism rather a huge definition. So then simply we can say tourism means visiting for at least one night for leisure and holiday, businesses and professional or other tourism purposes. So then if you visit somewhere at least one night or above, so we'll call it basically for, and even if the purpose is more towards recreation of discretionary time, so then we need this term leisure and holiday, even which can join with business purposes as well. As we said, this because this work can even have a kind of connection with tourism, and then business and professional or other purposes also there. So then altogether these things amalgamate towards the so-called term tourism, right? And then simply we can say then this tourism means then visiting for at least one night or beyond, and then it means where we have a temporary movement to destinations outside the normal home or workspace. So then you are moving away from your home or workspace temporarily. That is what we call tourism. So this is the simple way we can define tourism. So even you can add more things to here for this definition, because I know most of you, majority of you have experience and you all involved in tourism. So then so are you agree with this, or do you need to add more things to here? Feel free to add.
When we travel, we don't earn money at a particular destination.
Okay, yes, great. Okay, so then so once you travel, you will not earn money, right? What you mentioned.
Yes.
No, rather you will spend. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But finally, your destination will have some money earning objectives as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yes, exactly. What else? Okay, so feel free to add, right? So we'll move forward, but if you get any idea, feel free to add it. And then now if we back again to that flow. Now with these definitions, now maybe this is more clear to us. Right? So now we know. So if we have leisure or recreation, so with leisure we have this discretion time, and then we are recreating that time, or even we have work. So when it's called recreation of time of leisure, so then we have home-based recreation, no, the recreation of time away from home, and this recreation of time away from home to which directed towards tourism, and even work will directly directed toward tourism, because we have this professional objectives based tourism as well. And then finally them all connected towards these unlimited wants. Because of these purposes, these activities, we may have a lot of unlimited wants, different options, and even we know things are scarce, and finally as a result we should consider about economics of tourism to come up with different solutions, derivations, options, strategies, and so on and so forth. That's why we are studying, obviously, economics of tourism. You see, so that was the objective behind studying economics of tourism. And then further, this again will show you more explanation while focusing time factor, because this all will depend on time. Even we know, even I mentioned you, the time is a scarce resource again, right? So then you have to utilize your time for them all. This leisure means the time again. So you have work. Even we can think of some other time as well, right? Except of leisure and work. So maybe your sick time. So if you stay in the hospital, so which is not leisure, obviously, even which is not your working time, which is something else. So then having this, so you have to utilize time, right? Then as we discussed earlier, so then this leisure time, yeah, you will recreate it. So this leisure time is the discrete time, so you will recreate it with the way we discuss, and then work and them all finally connected towards tourism. The same flow earlier, which add more value to with time here, right? Now these things are important for us when it's come to later discussions, when it's come to strategies, and even when it's come to tourist perspective, demand perspective. So where we should think, so how tourists will demand different options and their preferences. So how their choices will be there, and then how the choice theory will apply here, and how strategic behavior will apply here. So these things, first is really important to know about these basic fundamentals that will basically create the flow, or that will maintain this process. And then it's easy for us to highlight few things from here and then to analyze them with different economic objectives and lenses. And then few facts. Now when it's come to tourism, we know even now this from 2019. So which the source, basically I just used Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority and their statistical report. Now, so this is the latest report available. So from that I got them. So here they have summary of 2019 tourism results, right? And even it says another year of growth. So anyhow, later on with 2021, because of COVID, we may expect different results. So we'll observe them with new outcomes, new reports, and so on. But now this will basically say about global tourism, right? Even if you will observe about global tourism, even now by 2019 even it's mentioned that they got something improved, right? And even you can see in here, so how the tourism distributed across different regions, right? So this when it comes to share, so in Europe it is around 51% share, right? So then when it comes to global tourism change, which is 4% plus change, right? And even roughly 4 million arrivals per day. In altogether 1.5 billion international tourist arrivals, right? And then you can see the sources of different shares from different destinations. So where tourism happen and how to what extent. And then once we focus more into Sri Lankan context, now why tourism really important for Sri Lanka? Even maybe you all discuss this in different other courses as well, because when it's come to Sri Lankan context, so we try to utilize tourism as a master plan, is it? No, even you all can add, right? So you may have knowledge about these things, these facts and data. So basically nowadays, we always think of oh, we are in a problem with foreign exchange earnings, right? And we thought of tourism as one key sector, because we know it's a service, it's under service sector anyhow. We thought of tourism as a key sectoral contribution that we can utilize to improve our foreign exchange earnings, right? Now in Sri Lankan context, now you can see from these averages, so far now by 2019, we have around 13.7% from total foreign exchange earnings when it comes to tourism. Still, the majority from workers' remittances, and then even from textiles and garments, and followed by tourism, right? And then we have transport in a separate sector. So this is how it's even by 2019 we can see. Now the thing is, so how could we improve now? Even now we should think of, plus this we should think of COVID impact now, which was serious and still which is serious, right? And then even we have to take account of the impact from COVID into tourism, and then we have to see, so then how we should move forward with tourism, right? Now since you all are people who involved and who are going to involve in tourism sector, so then it's really important to think of strategies, think of alternatives, think of approaches, or to analyze things and see so what's happening with tourism and what we can do for tourism. So we'll try from this course even to utilize some aspects to see or to find out few important economic applications that will support you for different uh, 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 approaches in future, to see whether we can improve this tourism towards more percentage in foreign exchange earnings for Sri Lanka. Now, so when it's come to more data from Sri Lankan context from the same report, so here you can see tourist arrivals by year, right? So since 2000 till 19, so see the pattern, right? So the numbers given in the units for number of tourists, right? Now you see it's okay. So after the war, obviously you can see a clear improvement, and it's improving in terms of the height of the bars. But then again, after 2018, we observe a decline. So even now, if you add this towards 2021, because of COVID, we'll expect a decline. Okay. Now the best comparison will be come up with this thing. It's about tourist arrival or the growth change of tourist arrivals. Now here, the trend line will be a good one, isn't it? The trend line will show you a positive improvement of tourist arrivals. And here, rather is more dynamic, isn't it? Because it's really important for us to think of tourist arrival in terms of growth changes. So how the growth change of tourist arrivals show us differences. Now you see initially even we had a kind of growth in 2003, but later is decline, maybe because of war, we'll say. And then after we had a significant growth, around 46.1 growth, and then however the growth rate declines and is declining further. And by you see by 2019, which is a negative growth, rather I mean which is a very low growth. Right? So this is how we can observe growth according to STAT. Right? So then we have to observe what are the factors behind these dynamics. Now we have to think of both sides. We will think of supply side even, and even the demand. So then from tourist demand, so what happens? So why? And even if you think of purpose of visit by tourists, right? Majority visit for pleasure and vacation. So when it comes to Sri Lanka context, and we have a very less percentage for business purposes. So then for Sri Lanka, we have very less when it comes to that business purpose tourists visits. Rather, we have more tourists who visit here for that recreation of their leisure time purpose, right? And even we have other things like sports, very less percentage, and health and all. Even because we had a lot of discussion about dental tourism and even ecotourism and so on, and so on, we have to think of how things are going up, right? And even very less percentage for education. Having a good education system, so we have to think again why still we are having this much of less percentage of tourists who visit Sri Lanka for education purposes. So whether we have a problem with that as well, right? And for meetings, conferences, we have around 1%, and so on, so on. You can see how the percentage is. So these factors, I think maybe you all now almost know these factors. Again, I am showing these factors because these factors will important for us to think of a master plan or what we can do for future of tourism industry, and then how the economic applications will support us for that. So even we are going to discuss about these things in our course in certain topics as well, right? So how this aggregate application, so it's more macro view also, you see. Now even micro applications are there and more macro applications also there into tourism in this course, right? So to see lapses, to see problems, and to suggest what will be the best or what can we do. And then finally maybe the application of micro and macro aspects finally will give us good insights, right? Even we have potential to do good research work in this area. And also see again this stat as well. So period of stay, because now if you think of earning, it's not only about number of tourists who arrived, it's not only about tourist growth, even it's really important. So to what extent we can retain tourists here in Sri Lanka, which should have significant impact into our businesses. So you all may agree with me. Maybe you all have experience as well, right? So this period of stay even will have significant impact. So then when it comes to this majority tourists who visit Sri Lanka for 2 weeks or at least 1 or 2 weeks. So if we calculate in between 4 to 14 weeks of this, yeah. So then this is the period that the majority will stay in Sri Lanka. Around 65% of tourists, even if we add that 14% who just visit for 1 to 3 weeks, so then around, you see, you can add and see, around 75% of tourists, more than 75% of tourists visit Sri Lanka and stay Sri Lanka below 18 to 14 days, right? So then, so we should think of period of stay as well. So how we can improve this? Because majority, as we can see from here as well, their purpose, which is to utilize their leisure time in a recreational way. For that, they visit for this vacation or for pleasure, and them will not stay here for a long time. So then we can join them together, isn't it? And so if you think of other purposes like education, health, or professionalism, maybe that purposes will encourage tourists to stay for more time, or even having this recreation purpose. So how we can encourage them to stay for more time, but then that will depend totally with their tourism, their leisure plans, right? So then how this education, the health, and other things will support tourism to improve the period of stay from tourists in Sri Lanka. So these things also important facts that maybe you all tend to think of these things, or even you can start thinking of these things, and even we can utilize different economic applications, strategies, and all, even to see, so do we have any possible approaches to improve these things? So how we'll analyze these things in economic lenses, and how we can suggest things in economic lenses, and how we'll make tourism a master plan for Sri Lanka to earn foreign exchanges, to move beyond 13%. Now maybe it's lower now because of COVID. So then how we can stand up again and move forward with tourism? So what we can do? So how we'll analyze these things? So this is also another thing that we'll try to do in this course as well. We'll try to discuss this thing with some applications, right? So even if you have anything to add, you can add here. If you have any thoughts, or if you have any data experience with these things, so feel free to add. So I will encourage you all to read these reports. Now, if you enter this website of, so do we have anyone who works there? No. If I recognize, so if you enter the website of Tourism Development Authority, so there you may get number of reports, right? Number of published reports. So then even you can go for this annual report. You can download it and feel free to go through this. Since you are involved in this, I don't know whether you almost read it or you almost gone through it. So that's perfect. If not, please feel free to go through it, because this will provide you a lot of important information, right, regarding the tourism industry, and them will be important for you to go for different applications, to think beyond the limits, because the stats will support you to think what is happening here, and then with the things you learn in this degree program, what kind of new things you can do, what kind of new research perspectives you can think of, and so on, right? So then please download these reports and see what you can observe about Sri Lanka tourism and the trends and all as well. Right, so then with that, so I'm going to move forward with some other economic concepts. Now, could you remember what was happened to US economy in 2007-8? Do we have anyone who can remember what was happened during 2007-8, even till 9? It was there, the impact for the US economy, and then finally it was a global problem as well. Do we have anyone who can remember this? So we called it financial crisis, Wall Street crisis. So we had different names, like we called it Wall Street crisis, US financial crisis, and later we call it even the global financial crisis as well, which was happened in 2007-8, in between 2007-8-9. And if anyone know the reason behind that crisis, please mention if you heard the reason. Or you can think of the reason from this picture as well. So now you can see a picture below. So what we can see in this picture?
Environment is oil.
Yes, sorry. So sorry, I didn't hear you. So what we can see first, so from in the picture, can you see a bubble here? A soap bubble, will say. Can you see bubble?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's within that bubble? What you can see within that bubble?
A house?
Yeah, a house. Yeah. So then if we add these two words, can you remember any term? So do you ever heard of
Housing bubble?
Yes, of course, housing bubbles. So what means housing bubble? Can you remember what means basically what means a housing bubble and how a housing bubble will occur? Now it's going to be a financial thing. So housing bubble. I mean more economic or financial thing. But in general, even you may heard of this sometimes, housing bubble. Now, so let me say, so how housing bubble will create. Now I will say it in a story mode, right? I will spend 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes to say it. Now, So this is what exactly was happened in US. Now when it's come to US economy, so usually what kind of things are really expensive in United States? If you think of a usual lifestyle in US, what type of things are expensive there? So when it's come to key necessities, the luxuries, hospitality. I mean, basically, hospital cost will be usually higher in US, if I'm correct. So if someone who have got experience, you can correct if I'm wrong, right? So if I'm correct, it's really expensive in general when it's come to hospital costs, hospital charges, as well as housing costs. So they are comparatively expensive in United States. Now, by 2007 onwards, there was a decision made by the government to reduce interest rates for loans given from banks. Right? Now, so even we call Wall Street crisis because why? Because all key banks in US, which usually located their key location, which is Wall Street, right? So then anyhow, these banks, they provide low interest loans for people. Now the government with the government decision and also anyhow they thought of providing low interest loans. Now even which is happening in Sri Lanka nowadays. Now for a year or more than a year, isn't it? These days, even for housing loans and loans, the interests are low. Right? So likewise in US, they provide low interest loans. And now, so once people get opportunity to get low interest loans, so what they thought of? So they thought of utilizing this loan for a good purpose. Right? Majority of people thought of utilizing this loan for a good purpose. So then what will come up to their mind? So to the majority of them, they thought of, okay, so from having a loan, I will build up a house because now, so housing market means kind of a light market in US because so if you could sell a house, you can earn a lot because of the expense, because of the prices in houses market. So they all thought of the same way. Okay, I will build a house and I will sell it. So then I can earn a lot from that. Now, if we get, we'll say for example, 20 individuals, so majority like 18 thought of the same way. Then them all build houses. And now what they need next? Okay, say they got a low interest loan and they build the house. Now they need to sell now. Now they are in a problem. What is that? Like what happened to me when I am offering you this orange juice. Now they all build houses, but now there are no people to sell it. They have less customers who are they are with willingness to buy houses. Now what can be happen? So the demand will be very, very less for houses because we have a very less number of people who will looking forward to buy these houses. And then as a result, the people would not or didn't meet their expectations. So because they are finding difficulties to sell their houses. And then this led them to reduce prices of their houses, but still no one to buy. Likewise, so then they have to reduce it further and further, but still they are in a problem to sell their houses. And then because of this, these people who obtain loans are in a trouble. So now they can repay loan to the bank because though they expect to sell their houses, now they cannot do it. And then they are in a bankruptcy, and even this will affect banks, and banks also end up with a bankruptcy because now the people who got loans, they cannot pay it back. And once it happened in common, so that will be a problem for the bank. So whole banking structure collapsed. The financial structure collapsed. And that is what was happened there. And once it was collapsed, so this is not Sri Lanka, it's about US. So then US dollar means the anchor currency. the global currency which utilizes as the key exchange term. So then once this collapsed, so that will affect the whole world as well, because majority of countries kept their reserves in dollars. So then because of that, which affect even which affect China also. Will you imagine? So then this is what happened, right? Now why I just thought of saying this to you? Because here this example will show us a nice combination between supply and demand and how it would work. And even this example will show us that the supply and demand, which is not always just micro application, rather even we can think of it more macro way also. Right? So anyhow, so this is about the same thing. A cartoon is about this what happened here. Housing market collapse with these loans and all. Finally, things happen, and then this supply and demand matter. Right? So then, in that previous example, could you get how supply and demand involved? So people build a lot of houses from that low interest loans. It means people supply houses a lot to the housing market. But on the other hand, there's no balance between supply and demand. So they got very less demand, right? They got very less demand. And because of very less demand, now they cannot sell these houses as they wish. There's imbalance between supply and demand, and market collapse. And finally, banks also collapsed. Right? So then you see, it's really important to see how the supply and demand works in the market. Right? Even Adam Smith mentioned this as the invisible hand. The way the supply and demand forces work. And even we think of supply and demand as economics key economic force, and finally how the market will be function. And even we'll think of this market equilibrium in micro perspective first. Even you can think of market equilibrium in macro perspective as well, when it's called aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Right. Now, so when it's come to demand, so since we have this majority who do not learn economics, that's why I thought of going through these aspects as well. So then we'll clear what is demand and what is supply, because we are trying to use these concepts later on as well with some advanced applications. Right? Now think of this car. Okay. If you need to buy this car, what kind of things you need to fulfill? Can you mention? So we'll assume that this is the best car, for example, right? So kind of best car, one of best cars we'll say, and then you need to buy this car. Or to buy this car, what kind of things you need to fulfill? What are the key criteria that you need to fulfill in order to buy this car? So feel free to say what you will think or what you will feel when it's come to that question.
Yes, I have enough money to buy something like this.
Yeah, so you need money, of course. Yes, you need money to buy this. So you should have enough money to buy it. Yes, of course. What else? Okay, so then we have.
There should be want.
Sorry?
There should be want. If I want to buy it, then I will buy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you need money, even you need willingness, isn't it? So from want, what you obviously said about willingness, right? So then,
yes,
yeah, of course. So then when it's come to any purchase, as you and Bhagya mentioned, we should consider these two factors first. So we'll say them are the two crucial factors. In addition, there will be more others as well. So first, obviously, you should have willingness to buy this. Right? Because if you don't need to buy it, so why then nothing will happen, no? So then first there should be willingness from your side to buy it, and even you should have ability to buy it. Ability means then you should have income, price, or money to buy it. Then, so if you think of buying anything, so here just this example says about a car. Even for anything, to buy anything, or we'll say to demand anything, in other words, right? You should have, or you should need willingness as well as ability. Willingness reflects your preference, and ability reflects your income, monetary strength, purchasing power. Right? So once you fulfill these two, then you can obviously go for purchasing decision. You can buy it, basically. Right? And then this reflects the law of demand. Because why? Now, if you're willing to buy something, then even if you have ability to buy it, then of course you can go ahead and you can demand it. Because why we have to demand it? Because we know this problem of scarcity is there now, right? So then things are not available for all of us. That's why there's a price. That's why we have to think of ability. And then once we have ability, so we can demand it. So we can say, okay, I need this car, right? And then when it's come to demand, so when it's come to demand, so in basic economic analysis, when it's come to micro analysis, we are referring to a law in terms of demand, with reference to demand, right? So then the law of demand, what it says. So here we'll use price for this comparison, right? Because it's about ability. So with the price, we will see whether I got the ability to buy it, right? So then what the law of demand says, when the price of good increase, what will happen to my demand? Which means what? Now, so you have a certain ability, right? Maybe that ability not enough for you to go for that i8, for example, but you can go for another car. So then the price will determine it, isn't it? So if you have, if there's a higher price for something, so then you will not go for that. But if you have a lower price for the same car, maybe for example, then you will demand it. Now what we can see there clearly, depending on the price movement, your decision may vary. So you can change your decision. Now, for example, for the i8, for that previous car, for a particular price, okay, you may say, okay, I can buy it because my ability is there. Now think of the recent artificial prices, what we can observe in vehicle market. So now you are not going to buy a car, isn't it? Usually, because why? Unless you don't have any other option, usually you will not go for it. Because why? You know this will be a bit higher than you expected prices for a particular car. So price is high, even you don't have that much of ability there comparatively. So then once the price is higher, so then you will say, no, I am not going to buy, I will reduce my purchasing intention for this, something like that, right? So now when it's come to a car, which is about more unitary purchase now, so we'll buy usually one car now. So we'll think of a more simple example, like we'll say sugar, right? Okay, so how many kilos of sugar you will buy? So we know sugar going to be a necessary item, or we'll say rice or whatever, dal or anything, right? So then once the price increases, what you will do? You will decrease the amount you will buy, because why? Your purchasing ability which is going to be declined. So then for higher prices, you will say, okay, now only 250 grams or 500 grams will be enough. But if the price is low, you will say, give me 2 kilograms. Because what will happen, once the price increase, your purchasing ability will decline. Once the price decrease, your purchasing ability will increase, right? So then, because you have a given income, you have a given amount of money with you. So then that amount of money that you are going to allocate for different purchases, different items. So this one, obviously what we reflect or what we known as the law of demand, this process, this mechanism. So when the price of good rises and everything remains the same. So why we say everything remains the same? Because we may have some other factors also which can affect our decision making process, our demand for good. For example, taste and other. So the variations in income. So here we'll assume that our income is same, right? Because once you have some other factors in dynamic sense, so then the things are more complex. So then because of that, to make it a law, what we did here, we thought that okay, so we'll think of price as the variable factor, and all other factors that will determine our purchasing behavior will the same, are not changing. So like taste, so then okay, taste will be not changing for the moment, and even our income will not change for the moment, and so on. So then when the price of a good rises and everything else remain the same, the quantity of the good demand will fall, right? So then when the price increase, and also we know now other factors remain same, or even we have this Latin term ceteris paribus, so the same thing, and then the quantity of the good demand will fall, right? When price increase, so having the same income, having the same purchasing power, so when the price increase, we cannot go for more units because now we don't have that much of income. So then we'll reduce the amount that we'll buy. That is what we can observe from the law of demand. So basically we can show it like this. Then once the price increase, quantity demanded will decrease. So then we have an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded for a normal good, for a given normal good. That is what we can observe from the law of demand here, right? So hope this is okay. So because now for anyone who learned economics earlier, so this is going to be one of basic they learned. Now then for all others also, if it's okay, so let me know. If it is not clear, please even let me know. If you need more examples or clarifications, please let me know, as this is the first time you are going to hear about the law of demand. Okay, so then if you're okay, so then I will move forward. And now think of this. Now imagine that if you could be the service provider of this place. So again, we need two important factors to fulfill first. Right? Now this will be a great tourist destination, isn't it? So if you could have something like this, of course. So then now to have it, to be a supplier of this service, to provide, to be the owner of this, we'll say this restaurant, you need to fulfill again two factors. Again, willingness first. So you should have willingness to be a person who will do such a job, who owns such a restaurant and who offers such a service. Right? So then first again there should be willingness, and then again there should be ability, which means you should have ability to supply. Right? So then not only for the person who is going to buy things, even for the entities or people who are going to supply things should have this willingness and ability the same way. So then here we should have willingness and ability to supply. So I need my willingness. I would like to do something like this, and even I should have money to invest. I should have capital to invest to have this, or to purchase this, or to build up something like this, and then to maintain the restaurant and all. So then I need willingness and ability again to supply such things as well. Right? And then we have the law of supply similar to the law of demand. The way it comes, which is similar to the law of demand. Now, even here, because of that willingness and ability to supply, again with price, when other factors remain same, because when it's come to supply again, we may have some other factors that will be changed, that will be do some variations, but now we'll think them are same, right? For example, our again the capacity of physical or monetary capital, so we'll think that is remain same, for example, right? And then once the price change, to what extent we can supply our good or service. So again, that is what we'll think of, right? Now here see the relationship. Now for supplier, when the price is high, so what could be your motivation? So if the price is high in the market for a given item, so then what kind of motivation will be there for you to supply things? So here you will supply more as well, isn't it? Because when the price is high, so it will be good for you, no? So you can earn a lot. So because when it's come to supplier, so you are there with the profit motivation. So you are trying to improve your profit margin. You are trying to improve your profits while doing the business. So then once the price is high, you will produce more, because then you know you can gain more profits while selling them. As a result, what will happen usually, when the price is high, supplier will produce more. When the price is low, supplier will produce less. So then here you can see, even when the price of a good rises and everything else remains the same, the quantity of the good supplied will also rise, right? So then we can see a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied when it's come to the law of supply. So we observed a inverse or negative relationship when it's come to the law of demand between price and quantity demand. And here we observe a positive relationship when it's come to the law of supply in between the price and quantity supply. So this is how basically we can explain or we can understand these two forces, supply and demand. That two hands you observe in that previous picture, or that two forces which obviously ran the US economy for financial crisis. So in micro perspective, this is how we can define these two forces, the law of demand and law of supply. And then now what we need, obviously, now why there was a crisis, why there was a financial problem in US, and even I don't know now in this Sri Lankan context, what will happen even in Sri Lankan context. So for a particular period of time, we are giving loans for less interest rates. Anyhow, here we don't know whether housing bubble will happen, because here the housing cost may be compared not that much of serious in Sri Lanka, but to what end it will go, whether we'll see a crisis, so we don't know. So we have to do careful analysis to see it. And now in here, what we need in an economy, once we think of supply and demand, we need to think of a balance. So always we try to think of a way to balance supply and demand. Because if we balance supply and demand, it means we are trying to balance the market. Because we have suppliers as well as the people who are buying it. Now think of tourism industry as well. So then we have suppliers who supply tourism services and all things, and we have tourists who demand tourism, who demand different types of tourism experiences, and who demand different places, and we have to go and solve travel plans, meal plans, everything. So then now you see, now future will try to apply this with tourism. We'll apply demand, we'll apply supply with tourism, with different applications, and we'll see how things and even how whether we are looking forward for balancing this, and then we can how we can go for different outcomes and so on. So these things we can observe. We can observe these things, right? And also see here. Now this is a kind of balance. Here we can see both supply and demand all together. Because if we draw a supply curve, a demand curve, your demand curve will be something like this downward sloping line which represent from D, right? Because you know from the law, when price increase, demand decrease, quantity demand decrease, so then it's going to be usually a downward sloping curve for demand, and then for supply we know it's going to be a positive relation between price and quantity, so which is going to be upward sloping curve. So then once you have both together, we are getting a cross. Even we call it Marshallian cross also. Alfred Marshall even did some contributions to introduce the basics of this, the mathematical expression of this. And then so even we call this Marshallian cross sometimes. Anyhow, we'll call this the interaction between supply and demand, right? And once we get this interaction, so this will represent a market in microwave. So then there we can think of a market equilibrium referring to the point where the supply and demand intersect, because these two curves will intersect now. So here you can see the point where it intersects. So here we see it's intersect, right? So in this point we see supply and demand intersect, and them are similar at this point. Supply and demand both similar at this point. So then this point which we call equilibrium price and quantity, because why? At this point prices and quantities are same for both supply and demand, which means what? Which means all production from supplier demand by the consumer without any problem. Whatever produced the supply at this point, the same time demand from the consumers from the same proportion, from the same amount. So then this Q star amount will be at the equilibrium, because why? Supply equals demand at this amount. So then there is no any excess. But if we move across these points, we can observe excess demand to excess supply. Now you see this point from here to here. Here we have demand, this amount of quantity. Here we got supply. So supply greater than demand. This is what happened to US housing market if we just think of the example, the scenario. Supply greater than demand. So then there's excess supply. So who will buy this excess amount? Who will buy this? That's the problem. So then usually if you think of government intervention, sometimes governments can buy this excess and keep it with their storages, so they can use for sometimes we can think of that with government intervention. But I mean with the basic analysis, these things are excesses. So even here, excess of demand. So we have less in production, but more people demand it. So then what will happen to this amount? So we have more people who demand it, but we have less production in our country. So then how to provide them? So when it comes to a typical good, so that's why we import things. We import things. So people need, but we don't have that much of. So then we need to import things from other countries. So even we can think of tourism in this way. So this is the basic application, right? But with more advanced elements and things, we can think of tourism. Tourism demand and supply. And whether how our market going to be, and whether our market is in a proper mode, in a good balance, or even do we have any more opportunities to improve the market, right? So then the CS and PS, what it means that them are the consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? So when it's called equilibrium, usually the area below the equilibrium here, which reflects the producer surplus. This area reflects the consumer surplus. Why we say that? Because now you see, now if you think of the supplier, right? Supplier, this is the curve for supply now, right? Then now supplier would happy to, I mean, if you go through this curve, even Supply will supply something for this price also, isn't it? Here. And supply will supply something for this price also. But anyhow, because of this market equilibrium price, now supplier don't need to supply his or her production for lower prices. Because this all below P star will be lower prices. So at the initial level, they would have provided if there's a lower price even. But now because of this price, they don't need to provide this for lower prices. Because of that, they are getting this advantage of this area. That's what we call the producer surplus. And even think of consumer. Now, if you go through the demand curve, even the people would pay. People would have some preference for higher prices also. No? So if you go for this price, so then this much of preference also there. No. So then now because of this equilibrium price, now people will not need to go for less quantities for higher prices. So then they could buy more Q star amount comparatively to this area. So that is why we call this area the consumer surplus. Right. So then even we can use this surplus to go for welfare analysis. Even in terms of tourism, we can see how the surpluses will change and then how kind of welfare effects will be there when it's come to markets regarding tourism. Right. Okay. So with that, let me here is a notice. Right. Now here we got I mean a kind of idea in terms of market for tourism, because now what we'll do later, we'll focus tourism market, right? So we will focus market for tourism, and then we'll use this demand focus to analyze it, supply focus to analyze it, right? So then it's about the demand for tourism. So when it's called demand for tourism, so them are the factors that usually we have to deal with later. Quality, then we have to think of fashion and taste, we have to think of advertising, and even we have to think of opportunities for consumption, we have to think of population, we have to think of prices, we have to think of income, we have to think of other prices. So then here, except price, all other factors will affect demand. You can see from the arrows. So these all factors will determine demand, right? So then now when it's come to a market analysis, so we'll see later. So we refer to demand. So how would so do analysis into tourism sector while thinking of these factors. So then how will demand will shape throughout the variations of these factors, and then how we'll go for different options, different strategies to improve this and this and this, and then to improve the demand for tourism in Sri Lankan context or in a given context. And then price. So price got two-way relationship. So price could have impact demand, and even this demand could impact price as well. Right? Because we know this, we discuss about this price and demand, even this how price will vary with demand of particular production. So then when it's called tourism, even prices will even can increase the demand if prices are low and all, and even demand can affect prices also. If the demand is high, so then we'll usually improve the prices, no? Right? What was happened to that previous orange juice example? So once I got more demand, so I will improve the prices because I know more people will demand. And even once we got higher prices, we'll less the demand. So that's the law of demand anyway, right? So then these things we can consider. And further, we can think of the combination supply side as well, right? We can think of combination of supply side as well. Now then once we combine supply together with demand, so then this is going to be then whole market. This is the whole market, right? So then we call this as the market for tourism. So this is just one example, right? So then we can think of more factors, and you can even expand this basic structure. However, this is going to be one example that will show you how the market for tourism will be there. So then even here we got this demand and supply forces, and we have this price as very important factor in between, which can have this bivariate effect towards demand, towards price, and even from price to supply and from the supply to price. And then even we have some other factors which will impact supply in tourism as well. So other supply prices, other factors. So the factors will affect supply of tourism, and even taxes, subsidies, technology, and even production cost of different outputs. So them all finally will show us the market for tourism. So then, so we'll in few sessions, we'll see how this market for tourism will be there, and how we can do, or we can perform different analyses and see what kind of optimal decisions we can go, right? And how things we can derive referring to this. Right? Okay, so do you have any questions or concerns, or if anything is not clear, please let me know.
It's clear, sir.
Okay, so feel free to discuss if you need to clarify or add anything. And even further, we can think of tourism and economic growth perspectives as well, right? So in that sense, we will think of more things. So more dimensions, not only this demand and supply and this market interaction referring to tourism sector, and even we can think of how more macro things will even support for us to go for decision making in tourism, related to tourism sector, and even finally to think of our economic growth while using tourism as a benchmark to support our economic growth. So even in this diagram, you can see this capital investment and even the quality of labor. So how we can improve it through tourism, and even land utilization and improve technology, and how these things together will improve the supply of tourism, right? And also with the demand, so how we can improve the demand of tourism, and then how them together will impact economic growth, and how finally you can reach economic growth while thinking of increased supply in tourism and increased demand in tourism, and then how this will eventually support us to move our economy forward to experience economic growth. Even later you can think of developments as well, economic development even beyond growth. So anyhow, initially we'll think of economic growth, and beyond we can think of economic, whether it's possible to go for economic development as well, right? So then we'll try to touch these aspects also. So we'll discuss how these things, so how tourism will support us for economic growth as well as for economic development, right? Okay, so then yeah, that is what for us to discuss today. There are a few key elements, right? Even these things will be the basic elements that will support us to move forward with more advanced applications, with more intermediate type of applications. And even in addition to that, we'll apply, so when it comes to some of my sessions, we'll apply decision making under uncertainty, and even these things like game theory, so on, some new applications, techniques to see how the strategic behavior will be important in tourism, and how choices will be there, and even we'll think of utility and all. So these things will be there in addition to these basics we discussed today when it comes to economic analysis of tourism across a number of sessions we plan for our course, right? So then finally with that, so usually I will like to give something in addition to the course, the topic, so food for life. So then let me play this video, and then we'll end up the session. And even you can feel free to leave the session if you have any task to complete soon after 11 o'clock. And thank you very much for attending the session, and always feel free to express your views, and if you have any questions, feel free to say them, right?
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah, yes.
Did you mark the attendance?
Usually from Zoom, I can generate the report. So I will upload it even so you can see. So from Zoom, I can generate the report. So there I can see who attend, which time limit, and up to what time, and all there. So you don't need to worry about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I will upload this Zoom attendance report to Google Classroom, and you can see your attendance, even the time you attend, where you, when you left and when you are back again. So everything is there.
Today, I found the truth.
Good morning, class. In today's lesson, we will be speaking about Plato's allegory of the cave. In Plato's allegory, he talks about human beings living in a cave. All their life, from their childhood, they've been chained up in such a way that they cannot move their bodies, and all they can see in front of them is a dark wall. Because they have never been outside of this cave, all they know about life is this dark wall. However, one day, a slave is released, and he discovers a whole new world outside of the cave. And because he is now the enlightened one, his job is to come and free those that are still trapped in the cave.
Look, think about it like this. The front row consists of kings, bishops, queens, pretty much the people in charge of the country. The second row is made up of pawns. The pawns are the least important and are pretty much what the leaders use to protect and benefit themselves. They're meant to be used for your own advantage.
Don't forget your red mask. Put it on. And now I pass you on to Carla with the segment on the terrors of originality. It's a red card.
Today, the truth found me.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I think it's really important for us to reveal our identity properly. even not only for ourselves. So it's important for us to break our ice and to even to attend our sessions proactively and even to perform well, and even not only for ourselves, even Sri Lanka. It seems in the tourism industry, Sri Lanka should reveal their identity properly without problems, and which need to clear up. So you can think of that as well, since you are engaging in that one. And anyhow, so we'll meet again soon with another session, and stay safe. All the best. Thank you very much for attending this session.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Welcome you all.